Nigeria's mining sector has been plagued by recent disasters, including a toxic gas leak at a mining site in Plateau State that reportedly killed 37 people and left 26 others hospitalized. Stakeholders believe that the incident highlights the need for improved safety practices in the industry. Consequently, key safety measures that can help prevent such tragedies have been advocated, from proper ventilation systems, real-time gas monitoring, emergency response plans, and regular safety inspections. It is believed Nigeria needs to step up and act fast. Others are training, education, and personal protective equipment. In line with this recent incident, government has, however, launched an investigation into the disaster in Plateau State, as it also ordered the shutdown of the affected site. There are also calls for stricter enforcement of safety regulations and better oversight of mining operations. For more about the specific regulations in place for mining safety in Nigeria, or how to report safety concerns in the industry, over now to our guests in the studio.
Thank you, Fimot Yusuf, for the background report. And joining us now in the studio is Dele Ayoleke, the National President, Miners Association of Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us. He's here in our Abuja studio.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Thank you for your time.
Now, let's come to Mr. Ayoleke now. You've heard about the various incidences, one in Jos, and there was one also in Ibadan last year. What is your take concerning all these incidences in the mining sector?
Well, there are two different cases, and even though the two of them resulted in a lot of fatal accidents, but the two cases are different. The one in Ibadan is just a case of absolute illegality.
Okay.
Storing explosive in a residential area. That is not what the law says. That's not what the regulations say. There are regulations on how explosive should be acquired, transported, and even stored. There should be records. There should be the EOD must be involved. But that is a different case with what happened in Jos. I think that one is as a result of a gas leak from the gas emission, or the minerals being extracted from that particular pit. Okay. And it's a quite unfortunate thing, and I think we need to communicate first with the families of the deceased, even the Plateau State government, and of course the nation as well, because it's a national loss, it's a national tragedy, and we need to do a lot to make sure that we bring this kind of situation to the barest minimum.
Okay. Indeed, to the barest minimum. One question I would like to ask, I asked you while we were having a conversation before the program started, were there no warning signs before these accidents happened?
There should be. Okay. There should be. But the issue is that there are a lot of missing links in our regulatory oversight, and even the operational oversight as well, because it is expected that every mining company, that is going to that level of operation, should have professionals among their staff to ensure that they see all these danger signals. They are trained to see all this ahead of time and take some actions to prevent them from occurring. So, and come to the terms of the regulatory wing of the industry. The law makes provisions for some essential services. Presently, the regulatory agencies, they are very weak in terms of logistics and human capacity. Take for example, in each state of the federation, you have a federal mines officer. If you go to this federal mines office, you might not have maybe more than three or five staff. And look at a state like Plateau with many mining fields. How much of those places can they actually monitor to be able to see all those danger signals ahead of time and take necessary precautions to preventing them? So these are the things that we have been clamoring for. The government has been doing a lot in terms of reforming the regulations. They have been doing a lot, especially the President Minister has been doing a lot to make sure that we stem the tide of illegality. But this link, this weak link of regulations, we just have to invest more in it. The law makes provisions for essential services, which will be carried out by extension workers. Where are they? You have a lot of professionals students, every year our university roll out graduates of geosciences and mining engineering. These people are to be employed to provide these services because they are professionals. If they are on ground, I'm not saying that accident will not happen, but it will be reduced to the barest
To be
minimum.
minimized.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Anyoleke. We've been told that our Jos studio is better now, that our guest in the studio can hear us clearly. Mr. Bola and Mr. Guam, good morning to you.
To you too.
Okay. If you can hear us, okay, let's start with the Plateau State Commissioner for Environment and Solid Minerals Development, Mr. Lamba Guam. First, we want to commiserate with you over the loss of the 37 people that died in the mining explosion in Jos last week. And we want you to give us, give us a vivid account of actually what happened. What happened?
Me, am I audible?
We're listening.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for having me here in the studio today. And just thank you for condoling with us as a state government over what happened. But I would like to stress that this incident is one of many that has been happening on the plateau due to illegal activities, especially artisanal mining activities, or as many people would call it, illegal mining activities here on the plateau. But this one was one that got a lot of social media attention, and that is why we're seeing today that stories are all over the place about what happened. We, at this particular site in Wase, in a place called Zurak Company, we had our youths mining the mining site, and unfortunately there was a release of carbon monoxide, and because they were not wearing the right respiratory tools, PPE, they choked and unfortunately lost their lives. It wasn't an explosion. People around there were able to rescue about 25 of the people that were in the mining site, but unfortunately 37 lost their lives. 5 of them are still in critical condition, and the state government is doing its best to aid them to recover. But like I said earlier on, this is a situation that is very rampant. Almost every day on the plateau, we're losing one person or the other due to mining activities. And we're calling on the federal government to put in the necessary resources so that we don't see this continue to happen.
So much like I asked the president, owners of mining sites, critics are saying that, the mining, safety regulations is only on paper. And who is going to be held accountable for this accident that took place? Because I believe there must have been warning signs before it actually happened, and people were still going in to work. So why were the owners of the mining sites not, thinking about the safety of their staff while they were in the tunnel?
Make some clarifications. The young men that were mining at the site were not employees of the company that had the mining license. What usually happens with mining licenses is that communities also always request, as part of their community development agreement, that a portion of the land be given to them to mine under the supervision of the company. Unfortunately, these youths were mining at that time, but the proper supervision was not put in place because the company that has the ML was not, were on holiday at the time. But unfortunately, this youth still went ahead to mine, and they hit a nerve, and there was a release of carbon monoxide, and that is the reason why they suffocated. But let me just add also that mining is on the exclusive list and is under the supervision and regulation of the federal government. We as a state liaise with them since they are mining activities is in our domain, to make sure that our people are not going into irregular mining practices. So that's really the case. So it's just like the oil sector, which is on exclusive list and is in the purview of the federal government. And that is why I'm stressing the fact that the federal government needs to invest more in their zonal mine offices, their mining cadastral offices, and all the organs that they put in place to supervise the sector, so that we don't see this kind of activities going on. Even with regards to the companies that have their legal licenses, there isn't supervision. The royalties are not paid as they should, and practices that they should be adhering to, we don't see that being the case. We have the Mining Act. What we don't have is implementation, proper implementation. So you can't have an act that is on paper without proper implementation. It adds up to nothing really happening.
Okay, you have the Mining Act, but the proper implementation is where the challenge is. Let's bring in Mr. Bola now, who is the Director, Training and Research, Nigeria Institute of Mining and Geosciences. Earlier on, Mr. Ayoleke here talked about the regulatory framework. I want you to speak to that fact that do we have the current, how effective is the current regulatory framework in this instance?
I want to commiserate with the families of the deceased, the governor of Plateau State, the minister of solid minerals, and Nigerian president over the loss of lives in the mines at Wase. The regulatory frameworks are there. However, sometimes there are, like the commissioner said, sometimes these people bypass and they continue to operate outside the framework. Though we have paucity of mining engineers that are supposed to be covering these places to monitor the operationalization and the usage of these laws, but we have the framework on ground, and the operators, actually, as I said, they have left. They were supposed to be in guide to monitor these people, because as it is, it was an agreement that these artisanal miners could be able to assist themselves with this. But I think what happened is that they might have left, and all those other regulatory items and maybe the monitoring, the releases of some oxygen or ventilations into the mines were not functional at the time they are gone. And I believe that's what actually caused this, that the gas monoxide or carbon dioxide or nitrogen must have diluted with the oxygen presence there. And because there was nobody there on ground to actually assist, that this happened. So the regulatory frameworks are down. However, it is not being observed.
Still with you, you said that most of the inspectors have left, so that means the effectiveness in enforcement in remote mining, communities where most of these accidents happen is non-existent. Non-existent.
The artisanal miners operate solely. Sometimes, even though this was an agreement of the mining license owners, they had their New Year break, that period. I think on 17th of this month, it was one of the countries that observed their New Year, and so they had to vacate the mines. Ordinarily, the artisanal miners ought not to enter that place in the absence of the expatriates. But this is just the most unfortunate thing that had happened. And as a mining training institute, we have been trying to get these artisanal miners to come for training such that they will now be able to know that without proper training, there will be always mishap. A certain day I was discussing with somebody, he was encouraging somebody to enter mining. And I had it and I told him, look, you don't just venture into mining without proper training. And so therefore, you should come to Nigerian Institute of Mining and Geosciences, JOS, for this kind of trainings before you go into mining. He was just trying to cajole this man, go into mining, there's money there. Actually, it's lucrative, but you need to adhere to the principles of this protective health, safety, and environment in mining, such that you will be able to save your life and save other people's life. So it is the issue of break, and when other sections are on break, I think they should close that place so that the artisanal miners will not endanger themselves.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bola. We'll get back to you later. Let's come back to the studio now. Mr. Ayoleke, you have listened to what the two guests in Jos Studio said, and that brings us to the fact that they talk mainly about the challenge, in enforcing the mining regulations. How do we begin to address this challenge?
Thank you very much for that question. But before then, I just want to respond briefly to the two speakers.
Okay.
The last speaker said about the issue of ceding part of the land consented to a mining company for community people to be mining. That is wrong. And the part they even considered to them is a tunnel. They don't have the professional way with that to mine in a tunnel. If it is surface mining, fine. Community should be educated not to put this kind of requirement, this kind of demand in their CDAs, that's Community Development Agreement. If they go for employment of their youth by the company, it's okay. Rather than for them to see part, I came into mining through community engagement. So if they go for employment of their youth, it's better than asking them to see the part. And this time around, they now see a tunnel. Where do they have the skill, the wear with that, training to be able to mine?
The equipment itself.
Ma?
Do they have the equipment? You need the equipment with skills to go.
They don't have. The community people cannot have that kind of equipment. So the community people should be educated, not to demand for this kind of thing that may endanger the lives of their youth. And
I think that's one of the things that he emphasized: the need for people who want to go into mining for training, actually, which they did not. Okay, go ahead, please.
So, coming to the issue of how we can
address
the issue of
non-enforcement.
I've said it earlier on that the capacity of those agencies are very, very inadequate, very, very weak, and the only way by which we can improve for that is either two ways. It's either we go full technology for surveillance, or we employ hands to do the surveillance. Otherwise, we will continue to have this kind of issues around the mining corridors. So, and presently, that's why when they were talking of reviewing the laws, we are of the opinion that even though if something the law has been seen for almost 20 years, it might be due for review. But we have to look at the present law. Is there anything substantially wrong with that law? The question is no. The missing link is the fact that we are just doing selective implementation of the law. There's no enforcers on ground to enforce compliance. These are the issues. Even if we are making 10 laws in a year, if you don't have that structure well empowered, they will amount to the same thing. So
since this artisanal, miners, even in the petroleum sector, the artisanal, are having issues with regulations. So what, as a president now, what concrete steps do you have, for being, to formalize the artisanal miners, to bring them into your fold?
We are collaborating with the ministry, because it's part of the ministry assignment to formalize these artisanal miners into cooperative. We are collaborating with them. We make sure that we mobilize our people to go this way, and once they go that way, we admit them. We admit cooperative into our membership. So it is through that one now they are part of all the education programs and programs that we are doing. So this is what we are doing. Because we are not the one to formalize them. We are not the one to profile them. That's the work of the ministry, the artisanal and small scale department of the ministry, and they have been doing a lot in that aspect. So once they formalize them, we take them as an entity, and of course we register them as a member. That is anybody who is willing to be a member, because association is voluntary.
It's voluntary.
All right, let's go back to Jos now. When we have the commissioner, Mr. Guam. Now, I just want to find out from you what the state government actually is doing as a form of intervention for the victims of for the family of the victims.
Of course, immediately we heard about, please bear in mind that Zurak company is almost 6 hours from the state capital. They don't have electricity, they don't have network at that particular location. So it took us a while before we were alerted about what happened. But I can say that there were some first responders on the site, and they were able to some extent, rescue some of the victims, because I can tell you that without their intervention, the death rate would have been higher. But what we did immediately was to send ambulances to the location, and we would take the survivors out of the site, and they were able to get the adequate health care, and that is why we're seeing that quite a number of people were able to survive. Let me also just add that I want to thank the federal government for their swift reaction. Immediately this incident happened, they called the state governor, and they called on the ministry, and we visited the site the following day. This is the kind of response we want to be seeing from the federal government. We're very delighted by their response, and we are hoping that after, because again, I always say that, and we always say as state government, is that they are not mining in Abuja. We're mining at the subnationals, and this is where mining is actually going on. So we need them to visit us more often to see what is happening on the site. I think they will appreciate the situation that we're going through. As the state government, like the president of the Mining Association said last year earlier on, even though, of course, it's claimed that mining is on the exclusive list and the state governments don't have a right to intervene, but based on security reasons, we had to suspend mining activities here on the plateau. And the committee was set up in conjunction with the federal government to look at many ways in which we can mitigate a lot of this risk associated with mining. One of them was we grouped the miners into cooperatives. We were able to do that successfully, and we're looking at training them and providing them with PPEs, because one of the issues that we also have in the mining sector is that not every site is commercially viable. So even though we're looking for investors, a lot of times when they come and do their exploration activities, they would not input the commensurate investment in there, because again, it is very capital intensive. So this site, we're okay with having small scale licenses to give to artisanal miners to mine on those sites, but they have to mine with the right training in place, so that we don't see this kind of incidences happening. So we're in the process of also, in conjunction with some microfinance banks, offering some funding that artisanal miners can tap into, and they can buy the equipment that they have, and we'll make sure that they mine in a safe way.
Still going to stay with you. You said that is in the exclusive list and under the purview of the federal government, but still these mines are domiciled in states, and you are heading the Ministry of Mines in Jos, I believe. So can you tell us the capacity of your staff, the inspectorate department, because I believe the inspectorate department should not be sitting in the office, they should be at the sites, at the locations of most of these mines that are located maybe outside the state. You said that is 6 hours to get to the place where the accident happened. So do you have enough personnel and logistics to be able to take care of this? Because everything cannot be centered at the center, because the subnationals must be able to do something to curb the artisanal miners going into mines just like that. Don't you think that inspectors should be at the mines?
The state government doesn't have the resources, to hire enough people, enough staff or personnel to man all the mining sites. The plateau, the minerals are spread out through the three senatorial zones, and to be able to man all the sites to inspect would be a Herculean task. And frankly, the resources are not available. Like I said, we're doing our best in conjunction with the local government, but mining, again, our stress is on the exclusive list, and the funding required to man the sector is solely placed on the federal government. And a lot of times, I'll tell you, one of the issues that we face is that, especially it is in favor of the mining companies, is that when you try and act, they would always say it's on the exclusive list and it's on the purview of the federal government. So we keep on, and so we don't have the legal backing to be able to prosecute miners. We always have to liaise with the zonal mines office that is here, the mining cadastral offices, and all the structures in place by the federal government. But even they are not manned properly, and they are not funded properly. So when we take issues to them, they are not able to even address it properly and on time because of lack of funding, logistics, and so on.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's bring in Mr. Bola now. Let's look at the social implication of illegal mining activities in Nigeria generally, because earlier on you talked about many of the people going into mining without adequate knowledge, without training. So how can this be mitigated?
How do we mitigate this? It is by making sure that most of these miners are sent for training. We had advocacy, we had gone out to invite them to come for training. However, it's becoming difficult. Like the commissioner said, sometimes you just hear that there's a breakout of mining somewhere and they have started. And sometimes this lotto or the shaft caving. In the case of Zurak, I think it is organized properly. The only thing is that these people withdrew because of their holiday. And I believe the monitoring system were off. And so therefore there's need for even the license owners to be mandated by the Ministry of Solid Minerals to come to the Nigerian Institute of Mining and Geosciences for training and retraining always, because the PPEs might be there. But if the monitoring system had failed, the PPE cannot protect somebody, because what actually happened now is that I learned there was injection of oxygen, and that's why probably 25 people were rescued. If there were no people around to ignite this issue, to pump in oxygen, I'm sure by now all of them, which means there are some people that have small training and they were still on standby, and they were able to inject this oxygen to be able to dilute again, because there are some percentage of oxygen required in the mine shaft. Once it's below 19.5% oxygen, this what happened now will happen gradually from 17%. When it gets to 6%, the people will start convulsing and dying. And so therefore, they need to know all these things. And once there's absence of somebody that could be able to control this equipment, because as we said there, it was in collaboration with the owners. It is the owners that off-take whatever these artisanal miners mine. So I'm sure when they are around, they operate all this equipment. But when they were not around, now these people could have gone into blast, and maybe the oxygen got depleted, and this is what exactly happened. So before the opening of these mines, I will advocate that they all send their people, both the artisanal small miners and the existing miners, to come back for retraining before these things are reissued. I mean, before the licenses that have been withdrawn are reissued, so that we will not experience this colossal havoc again.
Will not experience it. One question I'd love to ask you is Nigeria losing lives because of weak enforcement in the mining sector?
Yes, I believe so, because even the federal government uh, has limited professionals or hands to go around these mining areas. Maybe we might have maybe 2 or 3 mine inspectors on the plateau from the federal, and we have 17 local governments in plateau. This is just one plateau. We have many other states that have mineral deposit, and so therefore we advocate for intake of more hands so that they could be able to do this. As the commissioner said, from here to Wase is 6 hours, and 6 hours before the inspector could get there, the damage has done. So we want to advocate that there should be opening for miners that will be employed to become part of the inspectors, to be able to regulate this industry properly. Because if the person is here tomorrow, maybe he goes to another local government. By the time he's in another local government, they are calling him to another local government. He cannot link up this together, and so therefore we need more hands to be on the board.
Very much. Let's come back to the studio now, Mr. Ayowale. When the Ibadan Ayoleke, sorry, I know you wanted to respond to some of the comments of made by the commissioner the other time. Would you like to? Because I want to ask a question.
I just want to buttress the point raised by the Honorable Commissioner. You see, what they can do at the state level is just to complement the efforts of the federal agencies now, because the law does not permit states to regulate mining. So issue of the state government having inspectors, things like that, may not arise. They may have their staff, but definitely if they want to just go like that and be carrying out that kind of functions, they might be colliding with the agents of the federal government on ground because of what the law says. That's why we have been also advocating that if we want to review this law, let us look at the relationship between national and subnational. All of that things about the professionalism, about the regulations, they are okay, apart from this missing link of lack of capacity for enforcement.
Okay, that is the missing link. Yeah. But you know, in 2024, when the Ibadan incident occurred, the president, constituted a ministerial committee, to look into the sector. What is your take on that, and how far has the committee gone?
Well, we don't have report.
Have they been able to bring sanity into the system?
Well, I think that maybe the work of the committee is still ongoing, because we have not actually seen any report coming out from them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we have some. I have some 2 questions, from our viewers, and you can send more before this segment ends. Before we go to our second topic, let me read this one from Mohammed Awal Musa Alamei from Greenwall Observers Limited, Kano. He said, "What specific safety training do legitimate mining workers receive regarding potential hazards like mine collapse, toxic gas leaks, or flooding?" Good morning, Nigeria. Another one said, "Good morning, dear presenters and guests. My question is, do we have online training sessions for interested people in mining?
Maybe.
Must everyone come to just for physical training?" That's Femi Ajibode.
I think that last question should be answered by the
he's going to answer it. So,
but yes. The issue of the first one you asked on whether
what specific safety training do legitimate mining workers receive regarding potential hazards like mine collapse, toxic, and all that?
Well, it is like I work with one man at a time. He said it is very criminal for you to employ somebody to work and don't train him on what to do. It is expected that that's why I say that each company also must have professionals among their staff. This professional will put the unskilled one. They will guide them, and they put them online on how to prevent all these accidents from happening. Definitely, when you employ these locals, they are not professionals. They may not have the skill for them to be able to detect all these things. But if they have a professional guiding them, gradually they will be learning, and they will be adhering to all those safety precautions.
Okay. So let's go to Jos now, where Mr. Bola is there. I asked the second question. Said, do we have online training sessions for interested people in mining? Must everyone come to Jos for physical training? You can respond to that.
On a hands-on training, you cannot dodge it. It's just like a military. You gather people and form them and begin to grant them orders that they should shoot. Maybe you don't have the gun in your hand. What are you going to shoot at? How are you going to use the gun? It's possible you might have the idea, but when they now give you the gun to shoot, I'm telling you, you might not perform. So therefore, it is mandatory for people to come and have a hands-on so that we can now supervise them that yes, this person had undergone this training and he can handle it. This man that is here, the anchors, the camera people, if you don't train them on this thing, by the time they see this, they may not be even able to plug in anything. So therefore, we should not look at it. People are trying to, going overseas for training. If they could do it online, we will stay in our homes here and achieve the training. It is only in some cases, maybe psychology, you can train somebody online, but things to do with this, mining, that people are losing their lives, I think they need to come to Jos for this to be achieved.
Just for that training, okay. All right. But let me ask the commissioner now the issue of because there is need for us to secure the mining site. What do you think? How do you think government and stakeholders can collaborate to secure this the mining site? Do you want me to repeat it? Looking at securing the mining site, what do you think should be done, or how do you think government can collaborate with other stakeholders to secure mining sites?
Well, again, it's very important that the federal ministry, through the zonal mines office here on the plateau and in other states where you have mining activities, should be manned properly, to have sufficient staff. This zonal mine office, we liaise with them very often, and it's very clear that they don't have the resources in terms of manpower and financial capacity to be able to mine the site. What ordinarily is meant to happen is that you should have officers that are responsible for certain zones. And when they are responsible for certain zones, there should be enough people that will be visiting these sites very regularly. That is not what we're seeing at the moment. So again, it's all about resources and manpower. The structure and the framework to supervise these mining sites are already there. It's just the resources and the political will, I would say, for this to happen, that is lacking. So the framework, I think the president of the Mining Association has said that there's no issue with the framework. I think the only missing link he mentioned was the how the federal liaises with the subnational. It's been poor. We haven't had. I've been in this ministry now for over 2 years, and we haven't had proper interface with the federal ministry. So again, these are the kind of things that I like it. I mentioned earlier on, the minerals are the subnational. It's not in Abuja. It's very important for the federal to have some parley with the state government so that we can also have our own input. We don't have any issues with the federal government, but we want to have more parley with them. Miners, companies that have these licenses can't just come into your domain and go straight to the mining sites. And that is why we're even seeing a situation whereby a lot of community development agreements are inappropriate because our people at the local level, of course, they don't even know the value of what they have in their community. So you see a lot of irregular CDAs, and so it's important that we know who is coming in, and there has to be more interface between the states and the federal government when it comes to issues of mining, and we all stand to benefit both at the state level and at the federal level, because all this funding actually is accrued to the federal government, and only 13% of it in terms of the royalties come to the state government.
Commissioner, I'm surprised that there is no parallel between you and the Federal Ministry of Mines here in Abuja. It's quite surprising because, and you also talked about the political will. Also, experts also say that political interest is protecting illegal operators in the mining sector. What do you have to say about that?
I'm not making any allegations. I don't feel that is what is happening. But on our part, I just think that the resources are not being put in place for the proper thing to be done in the mining sector. I haven't seen where, of course, we know that there are a lot of irregularities or maybe some level of corruption here and there, but it's nothing that I would say is so alarming. But I just feel that the resources, because I liaise with the zonal mine office very often. I can see that they want to work. Everyone wants to go to work, but they don't have the tools and resources to work, and that is where really it is lacking. And that is why you would find that these companies that are mining here at the subnationals are having a field day, because again, we are on ground, we liaise with them, they say it's on the exclusive list. You go to the federal government offices that are here, and they are lacking when it comes to resources. We have tried our best as a state government to support them, but it's not something that we can sustain.
Thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner. Lastly, before we go, this question from one of our guests, this from Dafase Gotsui from Lagos. He said, mining is a high-risk activity and demands safety management officers in cooperation. If there was gas testing in place, which demands every 30 minutes to 1 hour gas checks in working areas, such an incident would have been averted. Regards. Let's have your last parting shot as we wind up this conversation.
Well, I just want to say again that we have said it all. We can say everything, but the fact is that we just look at that regulatory capacity of the agencies for them to be able to check this kind of accidents. And also we need to appreciate the Minister, the Honourable Minister, Dr. Alake, for the prompt action taken to stop operation at that site, and at the same time deploy a team there to go and see exactly what is happening and what government can do further. So I also want to encourage all our members that there's need for them to make sure that they employ professionals into their folds, so that they'll be able to detect all these danger signals ahead of time and take action to preventing them. And also to the community, they need to be educated. They should be very careful about the benefit they demand for in their community development agreements. Seeding a technical area of the operations to commit on skilled people is dangerous.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Dele Ayonleke, National President, Miners Association of Nigeria. Thank you so much for your contribution this morning.
Thank you very much, sir.
Also, we want to thank our guest at the JOS studio, Engineer Daniel Marcus Bola, is the Director, Training and Research, Nigerian Institute of Mining and Geosciences, JOS. Thank you so much for joining us. And Mr. Peter Lambagwom, Plateau State Commissioner for Environment and Solid Minerals Development. Thank you for your contribution. Now we'll take a break now. When we return, our second conversation is on the local government election in the FCT. Stay with us.
You're welcome back, and you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. And our second conversation is on the assessment of the just concluded FCT Area Councils election. And we have in the studio Ezewan Wago, Chairman Partners for Electoral Reforms. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very
as
much.
always.
Thank you.
Also with us in the studio is Mr. Chibuke Ngwarike. He is the CDD West Africa's election consultant. Mr. Ngwarike, it's good to have you join us for this. As we just want to take an overview of the Saturday's election. Let's start with our regular man here, Ezenwa. Give us an overview of what happened on Saturday.
Well, I think the jury is out. Broadly speaking, quite a lot of organizations that, especially the one that I'm involved in, Yaga Africa, which I sit on the board, has already released a statement. And the call fit is that the election consensus is that it was generally peaceful. At least, I like to use the word relatively peaceful. What that means is that in spite of the hitches that could have happened, you can beat your chest and say the FCT election came out much cleaner in terms of violence, but of course, there are concerns, and those concerns are lessons that we can continue to still talk about the issue of vote buying, which inarguably diminishes our process. When you commodify the vote, you make it such that even winners can't have the kind of legitimacy that they should have in victory. There is also pockets of violence and then logistical challenges that, in my view, I thought we should be able to overcome in the FCT, being the center of, synergy of activities in the country. Things like still having to put election materials on the ground without tables. And if, Bola, Juma, you've had me say that your election cannot be better than your infrastructure.
Yes.
And people say, why are you saying that? I say, you are doing, if you can't supply ordinary tables for election workers to put their materials to conduct this activity in comfort, if you can't leverage government facilities, the schools where these elections are conducted are, in most cases, outside of the view of everybody. Most of those schools
are dilapidated.
You can't even have your children. So INEC would have to use these facilities in their condition, because election is periodic. It's not. They can't become government because they are conducting election. But and this is clear because I have someone who participated as a PO, and she said the kind of confusion that happened is in terms of, officials that were even asked to come. Some of them did not show up, and the rest of them. So creating a lot of pressure on those who were working. And I think those are some of the kind of things that we can overcome.
So I'm still going to stay with you because I know you have limited time with us. So what does this outcome, sort of tell us also about voter confidence, in governance, especially in the Federal Capital Territory election?
Well, I voter confidence. There is a way.
Because I heard there was low turnout of voters.
Yes, there is low turnout of voters, but you could find a lot of reasons. One is that voting is not compulsory, so people who don't have a deep sense of civic responsibility don't even see why they will vote. You can blame it on economic pressures. You can even talk about the failure of governance in quotes, but all of that, in my view, once you refuse to come out to vote, you voted. You just voted for what? So all the excuses you have, oh, my votes don't count. In FCT, that's not true, because in 2023, that there is a Senator Kindube of Labour Party in the FCT tells you that your votes count, because she's not from the dominant political party, and then she won election to the Senate. So it means that the votes of people counted. The person in the House of Representatives is also from opposition political party, meaning also that the votes counted. So for me, therefore, those excuses pale into insignificance when you understand the quality and the value of your vote. And why do politicians come to buy what doesn't count? You know, nobody buys what is useless. So once you see that there is franchise, there is somebody ready to pay for something, it means that that thing has value. So I know that there are a lot of people who are saying, oh, people have lost confidence in democracy. And I said, well, why did they go to pick up their PVCs? Because that's also participation.
Yeah.
You know, so if you lost confidence in the process, why are you going to get PVC? You have 1,600,000 and something voters in the FCT who, and out of that, 95% of them came, you know, new registrants came to pick up their PVC. That's participation.
But didn't vote.
But didn't vote. So you can now blame whatever you like for not voting. But for as far as I'm concerned, if you didn't come out to vote, you voted. You just didn't know that you voted.
Actually, from what the INEC released, they noted that there have been an increase in the turnout of voters this election compared to the election of 2022. That is, they said that 15% came out in 2022, while this present 9% in 2022, while 15% voters turn out, which means that there is an increase in the number of voters turnout this election. Let's have your perspective of this election, Mr. Chibuke.
Okay, so CDD preliminary impression of the election is also out there. For me, it was a mixed bag, as we have always seen it. The truth is what bothers us much more,
Okay.
I mean, when you look at the entire picture, is the fact that I saw many people who were really very interested in exercising their franchise, but for reasons of poor logistics, poor communication, inability to locate where they should vote, and maybe emergency change of voting areas, they could not locate where they should vote. And I saw quite a number of people who were really, aggrieved for not being able to vote for that reason. I saw PUs where you see 20 people complaining for not seeing their name in the register. You see situations where the number of voters displayed are less than the number that are supposed to vote. And so what you see is a number of people who are really complaining to nobody in particular because they're not getting, any responses.
Okay.
Another one is the turnout we're talking about. For me, it's quite low. I mean, we're talking about 100, right? It's quite low for me, and I have just told you why it is so. But there's much more to that. This interest is. Ahead of the election, we thought and we made it clear that Abuja people are not really interested in voting. Of course, the truth is that somebody has to emerge, whether 20 people came out to vote or not, but we're interested in the popularity of such outcomes. So what you see is a winner emerging, but who voted, how many people determined that. So that's a concern for us. And again, we discovered that location of PUs, this is to INEC really. I do not know what criteria determines where PUs should be located. Because you see PUs that are located along a busy road, there's actually no place for people to queue up to vote. And I saw quite a number of PUs like that. So as if it is, I don't know whether it's GPS dependent or whatever. We've seen votes here and there. In Egypt, for instance, Egypt is an African country. They use primary schools for all their votings. And these primary schools are very, very strong structures. Once you assess the structure, you are in. There'll be no question about what are you doing here, because once they have assessed you from the beginning, you're already in, you are eligible to vote, and you have reason to be at the PU. But here you will see, PUs located in places you can't even imagine what determined it. So I think that's something INEC should look at. And again, of course, there was restriction of movements in the FCT. I'm telling the milestones that actually give us a lot of concern is there was restriction, but the powers that be had all the opportunities to move around with their entry. We're not, that's my personal opinion, I'm not very, very comfortable with that. if we agree that there's going to be restriction, I do not see where, for instance, the FCT minister will be going around with the interest, going from polling unit to polling unit. That's not, it doesn't give the election the credibility it deserves. So that was also a concern I saw, I think should be also highlighted. With all of this, and then the fact that there was also a curfew a day before, a night before. I also cannot come to terms with why. You know, those are the issues. And the FCT election for me is supposed to be conducted in a manner that people should be able to vote conveniently. You know, it should be different from other states because it's supposed to be an elite voting for me, if you ask me. The metropolis, we were able to go around. I encountered EFCC. I was happy to encounter EFCC, and we interacted. I mean, because I know why they are there, and I asked them, what is it like? Of course, there are cases of vote buying, vote selling, but the problem for us, the challenge is, which has become a public concern, is how do you determine that? How do you conclude that it's vote buying? What you see is sign languages. What you see is all sorts of gesticulations. But you can see clearly that transactions are going on. And so I was interested to ask EFCC, how do you even do they have the same challenge that we have? You know, we had a forum recently, and everybody's concern, especially the lawyers, is that as we speak, we cannot prove vote buying. Even if you catch them in the act, we have pictorials, we have videos suggesting there's some transactions. But ask them, you've been arresting people. In this case, they said they arrested over, I think about 29
29
people who were engaged in transactions, and they confiscated some naira and all of that. But of course, nothing is going to happen because they cannot prove those allegations. So those are the immediate concerns we have about the FCT election.
Yeah, from what you said, I mean, about people not being able to locate where their polling unit is. Because INEC, in their press release, they said that contrary to that claim in some quarters that some voters were migrated from to another new polling unit, different from the original polling units. The commission states that voters were not migrated. What the commission did was to create split units because they noticed that, according to them, they said unit in large polling center with voters registration of over 1,250 votes. So to avoid congestion, that was exactly what they did. And probably because the people were not were not aware. Maybe there was no adequate
there
awareness.
was no education.
That's where
there was no
maybe
awareness.
there was no adequate awareness. And the fact that the minister had to move, you know, he's the minister of the FCT, and he has the responsibility to monitor.
He's not the only one moving. The challenge is the politicians don't respect rules.
Okay.
Whether it is position or opposition. You know, the thing is that we have a penchant for the powerful. The powerful is the one who is in the picture. But if you moved around also, you saw that opposition politicians were also moving around. You understand? So, but you see, I'm very careful in engaging, you know, conjectures around why the restriction, why the truth of the matter is that if there are security reasons to impose coffee, you should do so. Because if you don't also, we are in a very tricky situation where if anything then happens, you also say that they were irresponsible, that they didn't take the measures that they should have taken to forestall. You know, I don't see in truth how, whether it's a coffee or movement restriction, the challenge is that Abuja is a bit complicated. Because many people who walk in the city center don't live in the city center.
Yes.
And that's why, for me, there's a challenge. For many of them, during registration, they went and registered close to their working places, but now live in the outskirts.
In
Suleja or wherever. So the restrictions affected, probably they are coming out to be able to exercise that duty, and I don't think that a lot of thinking was put into, you know, the idea of the restriction. But having said that, it is in the place of authorities, and when Chinike is a veteran, there is nowhere we have gone for election that they did not put restriction of movement. But the challenge here is simply that we have to come to that point where our elections can go seamlessly without shutting down the economy. But in saying that also, we also will have to know the quality and attitude of the kind of politicians that we have. Politicians who always want to take dubious advantage of any situation, and we must be able. So it is as we progress in terms of quality of the politicians, then we can be talking about removing those restrictions. If you don't put those restrictions as we see it, you will be shocked at the kind of crisis that you are going to have.
I like the fact that you mentioned powerful politicians, because they were moving all around. There was movement for politicians with big cars and siren moving around Abuja during the election. So in your opinion, is this election a true reflection of grassroots performance? Because we see that vote buying has evolved to alert in your phone, get in your phone. Those that were arrested were not aware of it maybe. So when are we going to get it right? We have elections coming up in Ekiti, Osun, and others coming up. Are we still going to have this problem? Every time we have an election, there's always a problem. When are we going to get it right in this country?
Vote buying is,
yes.
What is important for me is that it's a reaction to something. It's a reaction to the fact that you no longer can win election inside INEC. For you to win election, you have to win it at the polling units. And that is important for me. Why is it important for me? If you are giving money to go and vote, it means you have to go and do the voting. Politicians have realized the power of the people. Now, how they induce them to do that and how the people themselves react to that inducement is something we are going to be working on. But there's a positive. The positive is that power is back to the voter. What he does with that power that he has is his own problem. If he's and for the FCT, it's not even. In fact, I was told that they got so base to the point where spaghetti and all forms of things were even handed
as usual
out.
This
we are handed out. It's and in fact somebody talking to me, an election worker, told me that she was even surprised that it did it up to 1,500 or 500 naira was part of what was used to even. So it's just not the thing. But now we can start a campaign to educate the people to be able to, decide, But it is a criminal offense. We can also use deterrence, because this whole idea that, you cannot convince anybody is shirking responsibility. EFCC is doing drama. If you know you can't prove something, why are you wearing red clothes and jumping all over the place? The truth is that there are laws. Bribery is vote bribery. If you catch somebody within the precincts of election bribing, there is a law that catches. Our attitude to election is the problem. We think everybody who is most of the people in the polling unit, from the party agent to the worker to everybody, thinks it's a bazaar. We come with the attitude that is a bazaar. Why did a lot of officials who were posted to that place didn't come? They didn't come because the money that was supposed to pay to them in their view was paltry. So we need to take out civic responsibility. Our attitude to civic responsibility as citizens, as stakeholders, need to improve beyond this transactional nature that we have placed.
Before we let you go,
let me just ask you this question: this electronic transfer of results. I mean, at this last election, we gathered that they had about 93% of the electronic transfer of the results. Was there there being controversy over this issue? What is your take on this?
See, I've argued that it's a needless conversation for me, and I've never pretended about it. We can upload in the 2022 Act. Upload was there, whether you like to call it upload transmission or whatever, is there, and it's sanctionable if you don't do so. What the controversy is whether it's now mandatory, and that's a problem for people who want to go to court. We are actually aiding the lack of party agents. the lack of transactional organic party agents. We are aiding it by focusing too much on, whether results are mandatory. My own caveat is that sociological activities cannot be completely outsourced to technology, and that is what my view is around that. Discretion is important. We should sanction abuse of discretion, but we cannot remove discretion. You are moderating this program now. There are challenges that come here that only your initiative can help resolve. If you are looking at something and you can't see what you take your initiative. But if you go outside of the presence of your professionalism, then you can be sanctioned. But nobody should make a law that if technology does not serve us, then any other thing that
the manual
doing
should be.
no.
Okay. So, as a Wago, Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms. As always, thank you.
Thank you so
much for coming. Okay.
All right, Mr. Chibuke, we still have you. So let's keep talking about the operational challenges that we had during this. What were the operational challenges that you noticed?
Okay, first of all, let me respond to the last issue about splitting.
Okay.
You talked about it. It's the best practice.
Okay, the splitting of okay, yeah,
exactly.
voters
Because
of the congestion.
Yeah, we are always uncomfortable with where you have too many people to vote in one particular area. So splitting is the best practice. But our concern is when you split, it is the voters that will be affected, right?
Yeah.
So they need to know they have been splitted. You need to point to them where they are right now. There are actual text messages sent from INEC. Some actually came in on election day. Some came a day before. So ours is, if you must split, then carry the voters along. Let them get those text messages. People get text messages at the time they can no longer, cannot help them. So that's the concern we have with regards with splitting. It's not a splitting in itself is wrong. It's fine to reduce congestion in the PUs. But operationally, I've just mentioned the location of PUs, which is a huge concern for all of us. And I witnessed this transmission yesterday.
Okay.
I deliberately wanted to witness transmission, but we knew they were going to exercise it. And we talk about discretion. That's why I was talking about discretion. Abuse of discretion is our concern too, because we know how our politicians are, and we know that they can go all the way to achieve what they want to achieve. So that's why we're particular about these riders, these clauses that are provided, resort to manual if you can do this. Now, I watched them do transmission yesterday, and very perfect. And I will tell the guys, how I wish this would be replicated across PUs. There are some people who come out, they set out to do the right thing. There are people who have motives. Okay. And you see it from the moment you see them. They will become jittery. They're looking out for when the place will be decongested, all that kind of stuff. But another thing I observed is when you have completed voting, there are ballot papers that are remaining. And then somebody pick up that issue in one of the PUs I observed and say, okay, it came with a directive, please, you are supposed to cancel out the ballot papers that are remaining. And why he's saying that is, we know what is likely to happen. But my concern, my own motivation is the transmission have taken place. Mm-hmm. The result has been transmitted to wherever, to RF. Now, what else can happen to the ballot papers? But again, the guy, because the guy in charge of the PU was very transparent, and he did a call to his superior. What are we supposed to do with the leftover ballot papers? Apparently, he didn't have that information, and put it on speaker. The guy said, okay, take inventory of what is remaining, which was fine. I do not think the used ballot papers, I don't know, they are good for, to take inventory of them. Because in some areas they could be put to use, especially where people are reluctant to transmission. When manual sets in, people can actually put that to use. So it was a good, place to be at the moment, but it cannot say that for every other place. So for me, people who are managing the PUs should be very conversant with what they do with what they have at the end of the day, whether they are being watched or not. That means training is very, very critical for them to understand. So another thing is, we learned that they deployed like how many 29,000 security people. That is Interagency Consultative Committee on Electoral Reason were at work.
In Abuja?
In Abuja, yes.
29,000.
Not quite much.
That's quite much.
Not quite much. But you see, there are areas we couldn't see, but we got reports. We also monitoring the media. And there were violence in some areas, especially collection points. And when this kind of violence, what we expect that for you to have this number of deployments, they should be distributed, evenly, and according to flashpoint areas. INEC were proactive when they mentioned that there are 3 flashpoint areas. Buhari was there, and I think Kwale and one other area. And what that means is you now know how to deploy your, security forces or security agencies. And so the violence we witnessed and the thuggery we witnessed, for me, they were uncalled for. Those things could have been nipped in the bud, and it can only happen where there are no, uniformed people around in good numbers, and that's why people will have the courage to begin to foment trouble and all of that. So that's one area. Of course, there's a collaboration between INEC and the interagencies. That's why they work in harmony. So we expect a lot of improvement. Why I brought about FCT election, it's supposed to be a signpost for future elections.
Yes, I was going to come to you. Is this outcome an early political temperature check ahead of future national elections? Because we have state elections and national elections coming up next year.
Yeah, so we thought Abuja was going to be a good, test ground for what is going to come. I mean, we have put all the ones we have observed in the past before, behind us. FCT, because we thought it's inhabited more by elites, and there were people who we thought should understand the need to vote. Unfortunately, it's not so. There wasn't much of sensitization or voter education. We haven't come to a level where people should actually sensitize themselves. Because they say we are all political animals. So I think we should participate in our democracy, and those are the ways we participate. So Abuja FCT election was supposed to, record a lot of high points, positive high points, improvements. And that's an opportunity for you to check out all the stakeholders that has something to do with the election. How did they fare? And that's why we are, scrutinizing INEC, scrutinizing the security people, scrutinizing even the politicians and all of that. Anything that is not corrected here, we're likely to be replicated in future elections. So I'm thinking that we have mentioned issue of PU's location. INEC should take note of that. Also mentioned that the issue of, violence in some areas, the interagency should also, be able to read the situation, read the environment, where are you likely to experience, violence, and then nip it in the bud. We can't afford to be battling with how to contain these situations when we can actually nip them in the bud. So logistics has been a nightmare, and that has been a constant issue. I don't know how that's going to be resolved, but what I think is INEC, we expect that whatever they require, financially speaking, to be provided. There's a timeline for all of that. It's a constitutional provision that whatever budgetary requirements they should have it in good time. Because sometimes, if monies are released late, it will certainly affect their planning.
Okay.
And that could be motive. We don't know, but the truth is, if you don't give them all that, so that they'll have the wherewithal to implement and get prepared for whatever they need, it will certainly affect them. And of course, they don't shout, they don't talk much. Just give them what they expect so they'll do their planning. And then we're working closely with them. We've been working closely with them. INEC, for instance, we know that they are made up of human beings.
Okay.
Things are not as easy as we think. It is easier to actually critique them, but we know that there's much more they can do together, and we are doing that with them. I think if we pay attention with the lessons we are learning and all the hiccups we are seeing and the gaps we are pointing out, I think future elections should be better. And what we do too is, once we are done with the observation, we also send all that we're saying now, the reports, we get it to INEC.
Okay. Future election will be better.
Mr. Chubuke Mbahirike, CDD West Africa's election consultant. Thank you so much for your insight into the FCT election. I hope to have you as, we discuss electoral matters and all. We hope you'll be honor our invitation and come back.
Yes, I've been coming here. I don't
Okay. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. I hope you find topics quite interesting. Tomorrow is another day. I am Juma Yusuf.
And I'm Ademola. You do have a lovely day.